Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to today's episode of Small Business War Stories. And today I have the pleasure and honor to sit down with Andrea Morris, and she has a food truck. And what's cool about food trucks, we've never had one on the show. We've done a lot of shows, and we've never had one. I've always wanted to do one because it's a really interesting, relatively new trend. I think they've been around for a while in some capacity, but in terms of cities having food truck parks and it being a way in which entrepreneurs can start without the capital investment of a physical restaurant. Now, I did learn there's a lot of things I did not know about food trucks and regulations and things you have to do. And you do have to have some physical locations, at least here in Texas. I learned a ton. And we also talked a little bit about the notion. So one of the people I really look up to, Anthony Bourdain, in his book Kitchen Confidential, talks about the kinds of folks that should not start restaurants. And we talk about, how do you distinguish? How do you know if you are the kind of person that should start a food business, a food truck, a restaurant, or not? Because it's really, really difficult. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. Andrea is amazing. She fed me, and we drank some cocktails that she mixed us. Had a great time. Make sure you check out our website at smallbusinesswarstories.com. And we have lots of cool things coming down the pipe for the rest of the year. Please do reach out. And if you have any guest recommendations or any ideas, we would love to hear them. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode with Andrea Morris here in Cedar Park, Texas. And we are live here in beautiful Cedar Park, Texas. And today I have the pleasure and honor to sit down with Andrea Morris. And you are the owner and chef of Andrea's Eats.
Yes, I am.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Cheers. We'll start here.
Cheers, for sure.
Thank you for making us cocktails here. It's a great way to get started for our show. So hopefully the show will get more and more interesting as we go.
I hope so.
No, so you are in over 120 episodes now that we've done of the show, the first food truck.
Oh, awesome.
Ever. So, and I've always wanted to do a food truck. I've always wanted to talk to somebody because it's a fascinating new way in which people are doing, it's a different way to do a restaurant, and it's a way that is, I don't know much about. So I'm really, really interested in learning more. How did you get started doing this? Why a food truck?
So honestly, I've always loved food.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a family that owned restaurants actually started in a bassinet in my grandparents' restaurant,
okay.
Las Casuelas, which was on Lamar in Austin for 25 years. And my uncles have always owned restaurants, and I opened and managed a restaurant, and I've worked in the restaurant industry for a long time. But my love has always been with food, and I've always wanted to do something with that. Just didn't portray it because it wasn't reasonable to take that leap and the chance.
Well, tell me about it. What does that mean?
Meaning I stayed in a paralegal position for over 20 plus years because the money was good and I had a kid young and it was just more reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Finally, last year, I was afforded the opportunity to take that step into the food industry. I decided to do it. I performed my LLC and sat for about a month deciding whether I wanted a brick and mortar or a food truck, and decided that maybe a food truck would be best because I could make it kind of a family thing and not have to worry about like employees, and just kind of make it fun for a while.
So you considered, so many questions. So one is you were still a paralegal making good money in Austin, and you were deciding and you wanted to, step out on your own. That's a big, big thing that we talk about in the show a lot with people. What helps them make the decision to take that leap, right? So that's one thing. And then the other one is a consideration of a physical restaurant versus a food truck. So let's go first, like What was that like for you to work as a paralegal for over 20 years, you said?
Yes.
And then make the decision to say, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to either start a food truck or a restaurant.
It was, I'll tell you, it was scary because
I bet.
it and honestly, you have to make the decision that you're going to power through it, and no matter what, you're going to be successful. It's obviously something that your family stands behind and your friends stand behind as well. My husband was a great supporter, as well as my son and my other family and friends. So I just decided to do it. And the difference between a brick and mortar and a food truck, with a brick and mortar, sometimes people jump into it, and it's a lot more money, obviously, and you have to have like a lot more employees, and you spend a lot more time on stuff that's not what you want to focus on. And I wanted to focus on the fact that I'm going to come out here and I'm going to start out small, and I want quality over quantity right now. And I thought that the food truck would be great. Plus, it's a great craze right now, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I went with that. And
Awesome.
it was kind of a weak decision. And my husband and I sat down, and he was like, just don't go back in the traffic anymore.
Yeah.
Don't deal with
Meaning a
that.
week, like it took a week.
It took we sat there one night and decided it, and I got my LLC within 4 days.
Boom.
Yeah,
Just going for it.
I do. I'm a kind of an all or
what you do.
nothing person. Yes.
Well, I mean, your son is a friend of mine. And,
Yes.
And also my coach. Who
Yes.
He helps me be a little bit stronger and less weak every day.
With Atomic Athlete.
Atomic Athlete.
And he's going to be doing Atomic Outpost pretty soon, which is awesome.
Atomic Outpost.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Atomic Outpost, they're creating new gyms, and Britton, which is my son, will be opening and managing one close to the Domain pretty soon.
I did not know that.
Yes.
I'm going to have him on the show. Finally.
So yeah, so he's great.
That's awesome. So I want to know a little bit more about when you were thinking about what kind of food you wanted to do. How did you decide that? So you focus a lot. I mean, tell me, how would you define the food that you make? I mean, I've had it; it's amazing.
So for my main food truck events,
Yeah.
I try to stay with a very small menu. I feel like that's important with food trucks. It gives a product that is high in value. You're not pushing out too much, and you have the highest quality ingredients. If you have too many ingredients, sometimes that takes away from the food that you're serving. Sorry.
Go ahead, dude, tell me.
So I focused on the upscale Mexican street food just because that's like where I came from. My
Yep.
family's Hispanic, and I thought that it would be something that was like delivered well in Austin. When I say upscale, I do things like, my Mexican power slaw that has a homemade key lime vinaigrette in it. I have like jalapeno pesto. So I upscale the standard street food to a kind of a higher level. I went with that menu because I thought that it would take well in Austin, first of all, obviously. And second, I sat down with my husband and various family members and friends. And of course, being the cook and chef that I am, I want it to be huge, and I want it to like make this and make that, and everything. And so I do custom caterings as well with my truck.
Okay.
Any cuisine.
Okay.
So if
Wow.
someone, yes. So, and I do it with or without the truck. I can make anything in desserts or whatever. But when I go to my main food truck events, the best thing to have is 3 or 4 items on your menu and be specific with them. And then you carry that over to each event so people know what they're expecting when they come out to see you. And they're coming out to see you right now, like especially in your first year, for those items.
Yeah.
Which is funny. I've fallen into that doing the custom catering, and people like want to hire me like for their weddings. And I have a few weddings coming in the fall, and they're like, no, we want your tacos. Like we want your street tacos and your trashy nachos and your elote. And I'm like, what? I want to do something different, because I do this all the time, right? 5 or 6 times a week. And it'll come. And it has come. And I've done some tapas parties, and I do a lot of charcuterie boards and so forth. But
Yeah. Which, by the way, you laid out an amazing board here for me today, and this is remarkable. It's really good.
Thank you. I like to feed people, and,
Yeah.
and my appreciation to people is always like to feed them.
Yeah.
So I hope.
Well, I feel very appreciated looking at our table right here.
Well, thank you. But yeah, so after talking to friends and family, and especially like my husband and my son, they're like, you need to chop down your menu from 5 or 6 items to like 3 main items, and then if you want to add a special or something like that, then you can do that at an individual event. And sometimes I do it to like mark that event. Like if the event is focusing on, desserts or something, then I'll make a dessert that goes with it, but I'll make it like, Mexican inspired. Like, I have my Mexican hot chocolate tarts that I make and stuff like that. So I try to like put in my creativity into certain aspects of it.
So I can tell you, like, just the way you're talking about it, the way your eyes light up, you just love food. Like, you just love thinking about how to relate to people through food.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of my biggest things. And I also love to make things look beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that the first thing that you see when you go somewhere and you're getting something to eat is your eyes focus on it. And whenever your mouth hits it, it should taste the same as what your eyes feel. And sometimes people's food is delicious, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you look at it and it looks delicious and it's not portraying what it needs to portray. Mm-hmm. And I feel like even coming out of the boats, these little boats that I get off Amazon, off my food truck, people tell me how beautiful my food looks. That's something that I pride myself in. I think that the way your food looks and is presented is a big part of the way people like react to what they eat.
Yeah. So it's a way to communicate. For you, like, food transcends the nourishment, which is a part of it, but it's a form of communication and relationship with people.
Absolutely. Yes. That's something that, like, anytime somebody's like upset or hurt or anything, or someone needs to just chat and sit around or have fun or have a laugh or anything, I just want to feed them. Like, I just want to feed them something pretty or something that like actually is for that moment, whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's a form of art to me.
That's beautiful. I mean, there's a lot of magic in that, because there are many different. Food is a very interesting thing. There are a lot of different ways to look at it, right? You can look at it from a pure nourishment, from an atomic athlete. A lot of people talk about food from a performance standpoint, right? And then as an art form, as a form of communication, it's got a lot of different meanings to people.
Oh, absolutely. One thing too, I like to portray in my food, and I've gotten this a lot of feedback for this, is that I would never eat vegetables if it wasn't for you. And that being said, like my street tacos, for instance, I have smoked chicken and smoked brisket street tacos that are on corn tortillas that are gluten-free. And then I make a homemade Mexican power slaw that has like 5 or 6 different vegetables that are shredded up. And I make a homemade key lime vinaigrette to go with that. I try to stay very local, as much Austin as possible. I hand pick and do everything freshly, like right before my events. There's a lot of prep sometimes.
So do you do that in this kitchen right here?
No, you can't.
No?
No, you can't. So my truck is considered a commercial kitchen.
Okay.
But by law, you actually have to have a commissary, which is a commercial kitchen outside of that. There are a lot of places around Austin that are caterers that have commercial kitchens, that are business commercial kitchens, and you have to rent that out.
Tell me more about that. So I know nothing about food trucks. So so you have to. Food trucks don't make all their food in the truck.
Most of the time,
I don't know.
Some do, some don't. I do a lot of mine, and the reason why I do everything fresh, one reason is because that's what I want to put out there. I want fresh local ingredients. I want it to taste fresh. I want you to know that I'm the one chopping everything. It's not pre-chopped. It's not pre-made. I make everything myself. The other reason is because if I don't do that, I have to go to my commercial kitchen and prepare things, which is just a lot more work, right? So, but the food trucks, everyone has to have a commercial kitchen. Even though your food truck is considered a commercial kitchen, you have to have an additional commissary. And the commissary holds like for instance, my truck doesn't have a freezer. And it doesn't have enough dry storage maybe, right? That's why I do a lot of my stuff fresh and pick up all, like, I had 6 events this last weekend.
6 events
I had
in
6
one weekend?
in 3 days. I
Oh
had
my God.
2 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, and 1 on Sunday.
That is
so it was
wild.
a lot of prep because I do everything fresh. And so if you want to store things, if you don't have a freezer on your truck, you need to store them in your commercial kitchen. You cannot do anything within your home or anything else. There's a lot of rules and permitting, that come behind.
So every food truck out there, if they have high enough volume, well, I guess
regardless
of your volume, you have to have a commercial. So there are people there's an entire different line of business, which is people who only offer commercial kitchens to food trucks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So a lot of them are caterers. So they have to have a commercial kitchen as well. They don't have a food truck. And so they have it and they rent it out to the people to do that. So that's why I think it makes it easier to just do everything fresh. I know it makes it a lot harder sometimes, but to me it's more like difficult to like have to like pick up and go grocery shopping, go to your commercial kitchen, bring your truck, so whatever. And another reason to have a commercial kitchen is that you have wastewater and clean water, and the cities require you can't just do it at your house.
Okay.
You have to have a special place to go and dump that. You have to have a special place to bring the clean water in. You pay for all of those things.
Okay.
I live in a neighborhood that has an HOA, so I can't store my truck here. My truck has to be stored elsewhere as well.
That's interesting. Actually, I didn't notice that, but where is your truck?
My truck is located just maybe like a few blocks away from here at a storage unit, and they rent out the spaces for you. So I have to come clean, do everything, and then go and store my truck elsewhere.
So how does this all wash out? Because if you have a physical restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. You have a physical restaurant too. If you have a brick and mortar restaurant,
right,
you have to pay rent, you have to pay employees, and you have all these things in there. But if you don't, it's not like you don't. I mean, you still have to pay for storage for your truck. You still have to pay I had no idea about this commissary thing you just told me about. So what are the costs compare? I mean, what is the cost comparison for having a food truck versus a brick and mortar?
I mean, it just depends on what you're doing and what you're producing. But I'll tell you this, like I spend probably, $300 to $400 a month in addition to any other expenses on just storage and wastewater, which they call it, like wastewater and clean water, and then also my commissary. So eventually I would love to just like find a mixed use property that I can have commercial and residential on, open my own commissary, have my own storage place, and that way I don't have to like put out to that. Plus it's right there. I mean, everything is just, you drive here and you drive there and you're already doing shopping and inventory and, it's a lot. And what's funny about that is I don't think people realize, they think, oh, a restaurant, that's hard work. Maybe they don't even realize that. I don't know. I think a lot of people are naive to that as well. But the food trucks, it is hard work. I mean, it's hot. It's so hot. On the truck, you're in a tent. I mean, you're in a freaking metal like tent, and you get back there with me. I'm the one back there at the griddle and the steamers and the stove and everything else. So you're at 90 degrees outside. We're about 110 inside, and I have an air conditioner in there, but I'm 4'11". So the air conditioning's up in the ceiling, right? So we've like finagled it to where we have like we have the taco boats stuck inside so that we can direct the air elsewhere and somewhat down, but it still doesn't help. Like you still look like a drowned rat, like by the end of the event, right? Yeah. But it's all good. I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world. And I think that one day a brick and mortar would be amazing, right?
So when you talk about a brick and mortar, you're talking about having a brick and mortar restaurant, or are you talking about moving where you live so you can have all these things on the property? Okay, so in the near future? Yeah. Well, I don't know. Tell me what you're thinking. In the near future, it would be having all these things on my property. When I say that, it constitutes having a mixed use property, which means that you can have a commercial business. For Texas, I mean, you live in a beautiful neighborhood here. Thank you. And for Texas, to have an HOA and things like that, it's a lot of regulation, right? Like you don't have to go out very far out of Austin to find like basically Wild West, where you can do whatever you want. You can and you can't. So like if, for instance, if I decide to build my own commissary or something like that, I have to have a mixed use property. It has to have regulations for commercial and regulations for living in the same place, right? And it's called mixed use. And that's kind of what I'm looking at in the near future. And
that means just a commissary, just a big kitchen for like something more comfortable for me that's right there by me that I don't have to like go too far to like prepare big events for. Like I said, I do custom catering and stuff. So sometimes the truck is too much. It's too much for the truck, right?
Yeah.
So in the sense of that, that's not really my brick and mortar.
Okay.
I think that maybe after a couple of years, I would love to have a brick and mortar, and I have some things in my head.
Oh yeah, you look at your smile. What are you cooking up there?
A lot. So we'll get there, and hopefully it stays the same. Knock on wood.
Okay.
That it's going right now. But the commissary thing is probably my first, just so we don't have to go too far. It's right there at my convenience, and I don't have to pay so much extra out, to different individuals to store my truck.
That means you would physically move your personal residence too? Mm-hmm. So you're thinking about selling your house and moving somewhere else?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, that's a big step.
It is, but it's important to us because it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I need sometimes the space. Like this weekend alone, I fed 400 plus people.
Wow.
I had 3 graduations and 3 public events. 1 got canceled, so 2 public events. The 3 graduations were big. I think that having somewhere stationary, my own commercial kitchen that's not too far away, or commissary, because my truck is considered a commercial kitchen. It just doesn't have the dry storage space and the freezer in it. But to have that at my hand to where I go and I'm able to prepare, maybe not every day, because that's what I did this weekend. So it was 24/7 for 3 days, right? So yeah, I slept a little bit yesterday.
So and thank you for taking the time to do this podcast. I mean,
it's okay.
I almost feel guilty that we're taking
whatever.
this time
No, it's awesome. I'm glad that we got together.
So you mentioned the cancellation, and I'm really curious about that. How far in advance did these people cancel? And we won't name any names.
No, I mean, honestly, so it was a public event, mm-hmm. and it just didn't. They didn't cancel with me necessarily, but they put something out on social media, and I called them and I was like, so they canceled a portion of what that was, but it didn't necessarily cancel the food trucks, is what they said, and so, but I'm like, but on the flyer, it says in big letters, food trucks. And so I'm like, if people see that on social media, they're automatically going to assume that you canceled this event, and the people that were associated with that, which were the food trucks and whoever, are not going to come out, which is fine. And it was a smaller event downtown, and I was like, let the other food truck have it. I've gotten really big on trying to protect my business. It's small. It's just us. There's a lot of food trucks out there that have brick and mortars and a couple of food trucks.
Yep.
I just have this one, and it's just family. I don't really have any employees or anything. We're not paying employees or anything like that. So, and my family, of course, whoever works on there has their food handlers and everything else. That's another thing. You have so many permits.
Oh, the license. Yeah.
So many. Anywhere you go. So, Austin, Travis County, Williamson County, if you have your Williamson County Health District license, you have to have a fire inspection within every city of Williamson County.
Wow.
So that's Leander, Cedar Park, Georgetown, Liberty Hill, Round Rock, even parts of Austin. So it's and then Austin has Austin and Travis County. I have all of those permits, and I also do William Chris and Becker Winery in Fredericksburg. So I have my Gillespie County, and I also have my state.
That's a lot of stuff. But before we keep going with the permits, I do have a question about the cancellation. So if somebody cancels on you, mm-hmm. what is your policy with that? So let's say that you have a wedding,
right?
And I don't know if that's happened to you, but let's say that somebody cancels. A wedding, it'd be weird. I guess it does happen, but if somebody cancels with 48 hours notice, what's your policy? Because you, like you said, you're a small business and you depend on this income, and you just did 6 events over a weekend. So you have it's like a human game of Tetris with calendaring all this and making sure the commissary stuff's right, making sure the food supply is right, making sure everything's good, and you want to deliver great food to people, right? So what is your policy with that? How does that work?
Normally, if I give someone a policy, weddings are different. But in terms of a general event like that, I mean, I usually give them like 72 hours because like I said, I do everything fresh. So I do things like the day of or the late evening of, and, so 72 hours or so. But when I do private caterings, I actually have a longer period of time to where cancellations and the number count of people and so forth. And it's hard because it's funny. A lot of the public events aren't going to cancel on you. We run into this a lot. They just want us to be out there. So if it's raining, they still want us to be out there, even if we're going to like go down from 75 people to 10 people. So sometimes I have to cancel.
Interesting.
And that's something I'm learning to deal with. It's hard on me because I love to please people, and don't want to upset anyone, and I definitely don't want anyone to have like a bad event or anything. Mm-hmm. But it's something that I definitely my heart right now is like heavy with, because I don't know how to handle it necessarily, because I've only been in business since last August, right? And it's something it's hard to do. So now what I'm doing is a lot of trucks, honestly, do a minimum, like per every event. Like literally it's every event. I'm not going to come out to your event if it's a public event unless you promise me a $500 minimum. In that regards, it's like if they go out there and make $250, then the event coordinator or the business owner has to cover the rest. Whereas if they go on and make $600, then nothing has to be paid to them, correct? So I decided to come up with a clause that was just an inclement weather clause, and people are not very responsive to that either. They don't really want to do it. They just want you to show up, and so it's just it's a constant like give and take. The food truck industry has gotten big in Austin, and I think that everyone's learning from it. So everyone has to, in terms of the event coordinators and the food trucks, try to come to a happy median when it comes to what's the right thing to do for each other,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
so it's just new to everyone. So it's interesting. But the cancellation thing, like it's still like 72 hours, maybe a little bit more, depending on the event. But yeah, so, and it's mostly private events that
it's fascinating to me because it has a big impact on your business, and you don't know what's going to happen. And now, what's something that most people, I mean, we've talked about a few of these already, but other than what we talked about, that most people don't know about food trucks that now that you've had a food truck for a year?
Okay, so the biggest thing is it's freaking hot. It's so hot.
Yeah.
Everything pretty much cuts you or burns you in there. So if you like walk past something, everything's sharp. I'm not talking about utensils or anything like that. Just the metal in it. It's a very limited amount of space. You can have a refrigerator, or an air conditioner in there, but it doesn't prevent the heat from just, being excessive.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I think that people have this like underlying fun carnival-ish like thought about a food truck.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the sense that people are like, oh, it's just a food truck. It's just that, and it's like, no, we're still a business. We're a small business. We're still trying to make it. There's a lot of work that goes into this, the amount of space that's in there, the way everything's set up is not traditionally like a brick and mortar to where it's easy to function fast. Mm-hmm. We talked about like my menu earlier. I made my menu simple for that reason. Like I said, was a paralegal for 20 plus years, ate a lot of food trucks. We had food trucks come to our building. Some of them were 20, 30-minute waits. I didn't want to go there, but I wanted to make sure my food was fresh. So I have steamers in there. I mean, it's just functionality is a big deal in a food truck because you don't have the space, right? Yeah. A lot of things too that people don't understand about a food truck is that it's not. They want the perfection sometimes of a 5-star restaurant. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to give that to them.
Yeah.
But then sometimes on that aspect, you have the food trucks that do have brick and mortars that kind of try to go 5-star, but then you're standing in that line for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas our turnaround is 30 seconds to a minute for my tacos and stuff. I mean, I've been in events that were crazy lines that don't stop, right?
Yeah.
So you have to find that happy median to where you're delivering good, solid food that's fresh, that looks pretty, that people love.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, giving them that 5-star quality that they think they want in that. It's a hard balance.
That is a hard balance. And you know what comes to mind when you talk about all this? So have you read Anthony Bourdain's book, Kitchen Confidential?
No, but I so want to. I have not. I know. I'm sorry. I haven't had
so good. So good. He's I mean, I'm an amateur chef. I just cook at home, but he's
I love him, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's interesting is he talks about, and I really want to get your take on this, because he talks about there's a certain type of restaurant that is doomed to fail, which is a type of restaurant where Johnny the dentist and Jenny the accountant throw great dinner parties.
Right.
And everybody's like, oh my God, your food is amazing. Everything is so great. You should open a restaurant. So they sell the dentistry practice and the accounting practice and start a restaurant in New York City doing the stuff that they did for their dinner parties. And then it's a colossal failure, right? So I guess using that as an anchor, who are the kind of people that should and shouldn't go out and start because it's very sexy. It's very compelling. Like, if you love food, if you love to entertain, the notion of going out there and opening a restaurant, opening a food truck, doing that and taking that passion and listening to this episode, for some people must be like almost borderline dangerous, because you are somebody you were a paralegal for 23 years, you said?
Yeah, but somewhere around there.
Yeah, and over 20 years. And you are now pursuing your dream and doing the thing with a food truck. And then people are like, man, that could be me. I hate my job as a blank, whatever it is that they're doing. I want to go out and do this. What are some of the, who should and who shouldn't do this?
Well, I mean, honestly, that's really not my call.
Sure.
But
that's a good point. But
I will tell you, that's one of the biggest things for me as I've stepped into the food truck industry, which is very different than the restaurant industry. Sorry. I grew up in it. I've opened and managed restaurants. I've worked in the restaurant as a bartender, as a waitress. Decided to do this because I told you earlier, I thought that it would just be more quaint and, whatever. So in terms of that, I see that in the food truck industry. People are like, ooh, food trucks are hot. I can cook. I love this specific food, right? And they get out there and it fails. Or to the extreme to where somebody comes out of culinary school, right? And they come out of culinary school and they're like, I'm a master chef. I am perfect. I'm going to do this. I'm going to give a food truck and I'm going to have 10 different items on my menu. And I'm going to make it, it's only going to be difficult. It's going to be like a restaurant. I think that the person that opens a food business in general should not only have a love for food, but should have a love for the food that they're feeding to people, the way that they present it, the all-around environment that you're in. A lot of people get hung up on the fun of everything, right? I'm going to open a restaurant because I know this or I know that. I'll tell you this. I don't have a culinary degree, but I was around it my entire life. I've cooked since I was at a young age, and I've always loved it, right? So that being said, I think the type of person that should open a food truck should have everything about their entire person living and loving food and feeding people and making people happy through that. And if your sole product is not going to deliver that, then I think that it's not for you. You shouldn't be money driven on it, because I'll tell you right now, it's not going to it's not going to bring the money in the first year or two or whatever, and it shouldn't. But you need to have that love for the food, the people, what you're doing, your patrons, like everything, including what they're sitting on, what they're looking at, like the way the tables look, the way the restaurant looks, when they look out at a view, and everything that it should all be, just something that is what people want to take in. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people look at that. I think that, and especially in the food industry, food truck industry, and a lot of brick and mortars, you go in, and one of the biggest things in my book, and I can't stress this enough, I don't want a book to look at when I go in a restaurant. I want a page that has all the best things that you do. And if you change that occasionally, great. But don't give me a book to look at.
Yeah.
You're good at these things. Do these things. Be good at those things.
Yeah, I
present
agree.
those things. Like,
I don't understand 7-page menus.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, no. It stresses me out.
Yeah.
And if I go somewhere like that, I'm like,
You're leaving?
Yes. I'm like, I can't do this right now.
Yeah.
And so, other than some Mexican restaurants, because that's just what they do sometimes,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I grew up in the industry.
Everything's a permutation of,
Yeah.
5 ingredients.
Exactly, right? So you're like, okay, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
But like if you go somewhere, I mean, I have a couple of restaurants around here that I love to go to, and they all have it's like a page, maybe a page and a half. And I think that that's something that people need to look at. Focus on what you're good at. Focus on what you want to deliver and make it perfect. Because if you have that many pages of just stuff,
Yeah.
how can you be providing your patrons with fresh ingredients?
That is actually beautiful advice for life in general.
Yep.
Right? So,
Okay.
think about it. Like, if you are able to provide the things that you love, that you're best at, those should fit in one page, not on 17.
Exactly. I agree with that.
Yeah. I actually have kind of a problem with that, I'll confess. That's one of my weaknesses, is I do too many things.
Well, I mean, we all do. I've lowered mine a little bit, just because it's easier on the stress levels. But I think that sitting down with some people before I did this and actually getting some good input on the fact that you can't provide the highest quality of everything if you're in a million,
Yeah.
I can't sit still.
Yeah. That's why I don't watch TV. I haven't had a TV in 11 years.
Yeah.
Because I find that any amount of time spent watching TV is it's a thing, right?
Oh yeah,
Whether
absolutely.
or not you want to, and I found other ways to relax. I could sit outside and just.
Well, the thing is too is relaxing to me is not in front of the TV. Although we'll put ours on and we watch a 30-minute Big Bang or something like that, right?
Yeah.
We just aren't big TV. Well, we don't have really time these days, but at the same time, I don't like things to make my head go crazy.
Yeah.
So even reading, I love lighthearted reading, something that makes me laugh.
What's the last thing you read that you love? Or what are you reading right now? Oh no, here we go.
No.
I love this.
No, I'm actually reading the last Chelsea Handler book. I love Chelsea Handler. I do a lot of easy, fun, comedic reading, just things like that. Or even I like real stories and I like short stories. So I do a lot of actresses, and my husband and I are really big on music. So we go to any concert that we can go to, ever. And it's a big thing for us, right?
You should come to one of my shows. Your son comes to my shows
I
all the
know.
time.
I've seen it on the social media, and I need to come.
Yeah.
So whenever I get some time on a weekend or
Let's do
something,
it. Yeah, I know.
that's when I thrive the most, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it's big on me to clear my head. The biggest thing too recently that I've noticed is the food industry in general takes you out of your routine a little bit because it's sporadic. It's all over the place, which fits into my personality perfectly.
Yep.
Because I am all over the place and sometimes I have a hard time. You might have 10 conversations with me before you get to the actual answer that you want. Mm-hmm. But I just, it's...
Okay. I hear you. What is the number one piece of advice that you would give to people thinking about starting their own small business? Because not too long ago, you were not a small business. You were part of a bigger machine as a paralegal and doing your thing, right? So what is the number one piece of advice you would give to people who are thinking about starting their business?
I would just say do a lot of research. Make sure that you build a foundation to what you're actually looking into doing. Go to small business meetings the community has to offer. Look into and talk to people that are doing something that is in the same field that you're looking into going into. Get pointers from them. Take them down. Don't take them to heart, because that might not be what your heart's about, right? Everybody does everything differently. I think, too, the biggest thing to me is finding a place in yourself that allows you to trust and give people a little bit of a chance, especially small businesses. You want to be dependable. You want to be honest. One of the biggest things also for me is I've noticed this, and it might be a food industry thing, and coming from the background that I came in, be responsive. Be available. Be that person that's going to be, compassionate to your patrons and be available to them for questioning, and not be like, I find a lot of people not responsive, and even to me. Yeah. And I'm in the same industry as them. Yep. And it drives me insane, because I'm like, and I get so many appreciative answers. They're like, "Oh my gosh, thank you for responding to me so fast." And I was like, "That's probably ingrained in me, from my past job." But yeah. I just think that being responsive and being
give a damn.
Exactly, act like you give a damn. And sometimes you might not.
Yeah.
And you might look at that person and say, "You're not my person." But guess what? They are your person, because they're eating at your food truck. They're coming to your business. They're paying you money, and they want a quality product.
Yeah.
So look at them like you're appreciative of that.
Boom. Done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Signed and delivered. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for the amazing food here and drinks that you have served for our interview. I am full, and I'm very grateful of your time.
Oh, thank you.
If people are interested in learning, do you have a schedule somewhere online as to where you're going to be? If people are in Austin, where can they find your food?
Yeah, so our truck is completely mobile. My motto right now is we want to come to you to feed your face. So andreaseats.com is my website. On the events page, you'll find all my events, whether they're private or public. I post on social media constantly, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I promote weekly.
Okay.
And daily. It depends. Like I said, sometimes I have grouped 6 events in 3 days or something. Mm-hmm. So I promote as much as I can, and I also try to promote small businesses. Like I said, I go to wineries and stuff like that, but I also have Smooth Village here in Leander that I go to. I have local businesses that I want to promote. So on my social media, you'll find that promotion all the time.
All right.
So on Facebook, we're at atxandreas.eats.
Okay.
And on Instagram and Twitter, we're at Andreas_eats_ATX.
Got it.
All right.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you again in one of your food trucks.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.